friends, welcome to Ivy's Fortress. I'm Ashante, your reading friend, and the book we have today is Pura's Cuentos, How Pura Belpre Reshaped Libraries with Her Stories. Written by Annette Bay Pimental, illustrated by Magaly Morales. All right, so I read this story with my daughter a little bit earlier, and I thought it was such a iconic story. It was very nice. It's always interesting and entertaining to hear about different cultures and their developments, their journeys, their trials, their triumphs. So, enough of me talking. Let's put our reading glasses on and let's get reading. All right, awesome. Pura's abuela always had a cuento to share. She crows, que, rique, for Senor Gallo, booms baram, baram for Senor Zappo, and tells of a beautiful cockroach who loves a mouse. Pura clings to these stories like bouquets cling to green leaves. When Pura grows up and moves from Puerto Rico to Harlem, she gets a job at the library where she's surrounded by stories, but they're only in English. Where is Senor Gallo? Where is Perez the mouse? Where is Puerto Rico on these shelves? She decides to tell children the tales of her homeland in English and in Spanish. Lyrically written with lively illustrations, Pura's Cuentos captures the exuberant spirit and passion of Pura Belpre, celebrated storyteller, author, folklorist, and the first Latina librarian in New York City. A pioneer of bilingual story times, she welcomed countless new families to the library, formed cultural bridges in her community, and broke the rules by telling stories that weren't printed in books. Not yet. And if you haven't guessed yet, cuentos means stories or folk tales. So let's get reading. Pura Belpre needs stories, like a mango tree needs sunshine, like a coqui frog needs green leaves. Abuela always has a story. She tells Pura about beautiful Martina. She crows in the voice of Senor Gallo and quakes for Senor Pato. She tells how Perez bows low and asks Martina to marry him. Pura giggles, shivers, and sighs. She drinks up Abuela's cuentos. When she is grown, Pura feels the tug of family who have moved far away from Puerto Rico, so she boards a ship. Adios. In New York City, she misses the taste of mango and the call of the coqui. She misses Abuela's cuentos, but Harlem bubbles with its own exciting stories. It thrums with dancing feet and swirling satin. Drums rumble, saxophones wail. In the hush of the 135th Street branch library, Pura sees shelves and shelves of stories. She watches a librarian pull a book from the shelf, hand it to a girl. She thinks, if I could do what that lady is doing for the rest of my life, I would be the happiest person on earth. Amen, sister. Pura shops, runs errands in the neighborhood, maybe stops to tap her toe to trumpet riffs. The librarian watches Pura chat with Spanish speakers. The librarian can't understand. Here's her slide from C to yes with English speakers. Does she want a job at the library? C. Pura reads the books in the children's section. Stories from Ireland, from Germany, from Italy. But where is Puerto Rico? Where are Senor Gallo, Senor Pato, Perez, and Martina? Why aren't Abuela's stories on these shelves? Pura is put in charge of story time. Here in the library, there are rules, even for storytellers. Light the candle, open the book, tell the story. Oh, Pura can tell a story. She hisses, murmurs, roars. Children lean forward. They giggle, shiver, and sigh. She is allowed to tell only stories that have been printed in a book. That's the rule. So she always tells stranger stories, but Pura knows that not all the stories we're telling are in books. She wants to make children giggle at silly Senor Gallo and cry over Perez the mouse. She wants to tell Abuela stories. Pura decides she will break the rule. She works on crowing like Senor Gallo. Kik, kik, Ricky. Booming like Senor Zapro. Barum, barum. She practices grand gestures to suggest Perez's fine plumed hat and hums sad melodies for Martina's mournful song. Every word, every action breathes life into the story. It's Pura's turn to tell a story for her bosses. She has watched the other librarians. They light the candle, show the book, read about courageous kings and beautiful queens. She has a different plan. She will tell about a cockroach who falls in love with a mouse. She is going to tell Abuela's story. Do her hands shake? Maybe. But still, she lights the candle. When she turns to face the listeners, her hands are empty. No book? There once lived a Spanish cockroach called Martina. Pura tells Abuela's story just as she has practiced. The mouse squeaked. Choo choo. The audience giggles. Pretty Martina, will you marry me? Everyone sighs. He lost his balance and fell into the kettle, shivers and groans. Everyone knows Pura has broken the rule. Her story is not in any book on any library shelf, but what a story! Thanks, Miss Belpre, one of the bosses smiled. I'm a little tired of kings and queens. It is decided. Pura may tell her own story as long as she says that someday it may be made into a book. Children whose families come from Ireland, Germany, Italy, from other parts of the United States, they all flock to libraries where Pura tells stories. They drink up Pura's stories, so new to them. But where are the children whose families already know about Perez and Martina? Where are the children from Puerto Rico, from Venezuela, from Mexico? Walking the neighborhood, Pura finds them, but she does not see them in the library. Pura wants to tell the stories to these children too, so she spreads the word. Cuentos! Children new to the city, new to English, come to the library. Pura lights the candle. She tells los cuentos in Espanol, some from books, some not. Pura fills the heads of the children with stories, their arms with books. Gracias, they say as they leave the library. They will be back. This library is their library now. As the years go by, Pura continues telling her stories, sometimes in English, sometimes in Espanol. Sometimes she tells them to children crowded into library corners. Sometimes she tells them to students spread across huge auditoriums. She helps children act out the stories and tell them with puppets. Pura's stories become their stories, even though those stories are still not in books. They should be in books. Pura scribbles, scratches out, erases, and begins again. It's hard to get Abuela's stories just right on the page. But one day, when Pura reads what she has written, she tastes the tang of mango, hears the call of the coqui. Many years ago, in a little house with a round balcony, there once lived a Spanish cockroach called Martina. She was a pretty cockroach with black eyes and soft brown skin. Ha! Finally right. Abuela's stories, Pura's stories, the children's stories, becomes a book, because Pura Belpre always knew that many stories we're telling aren't in books. Not yet. The end. Wow. Well, I really like that story. And sometimes we need the experience of hearing about librarians' journeys to how they became a librarian, because they are life-changing individuals in a very important role in our communities, in our societies. So I'm so thankful for Pura's career as a librarian and her ability to storytell without the words on a page. Now, I'm going to read our author's notes. and then a little bit about our author and illustrator. There's a lot to read in this book. So if you ever feel like learning a beautiful story, check out Pura's Cuentos at your local library. It's a good month to check it out too. All right. Author's note. Your story will not happen on paper. It will happen first in the imagination of your reader. Ha, that's a good one. Pura Belpre grew up in Puerto Rico in a family of natural storytellers. She recalled sucking sugarcane or eating mangoes while listening to her father's stories and hearing many folk tales from her grandmother. She loved wandering the countryside, listening to the wind and watching the awakening of the living creatures, many of which later appeared in her stories. In 1920, she moved to New York City. She lived just steps from the Apollo Theater and other famous jazz venues during the Harlem Renaissance. We have no record of how often she tapped her toes to jazz or peeked through doors at swing dancers, but we do know that in her job at the 135th Street Branch Library, today the Schmallenberg Center for Research in Black Culture, she witnessed a cultural outpouring. I experienced the Black Renaissance of art and literature and the upsurge of poets, novelists, dramatists, and musicians. The work she was so passionate about, bringing Puerto Rico into the library, was informed by this larger movement to honor and preserve the stories and experiences of marginalized people. As a new library employee, Belpre attended classes at the New York Public Library Training School. It was in her storytelling class that she first decided to try to reshape library policy. She took an audacious risk as a low-level staffer, defying the rules that all stories had to be from published sources. Happily, her storytelling dazzled supervisors, and an exception was carved out for her. She was allowed to tell children's stories that didn't come from books. I am personally especially indebted to Belpre for her brilliant idea of offering bilingual story times. She was the first New York librarian to offer stories in more than one language, and perhaps the first in the country. When our family lived in Bosnia, my kindergartner came home from a local Bosnian school, sadder and sadder every day. It was a bilingual story time that finally helped her connect to other kindergartners and made her feel like their school was her school. The bilingual story time movement sparked by Belpre has helped many families like mine feel welcome in new places. Belpre had a great rapport with children. At one branch, concerned that the library only had clubs for girls, she started a boys' puppet club. She taught the boys how to sculpt heads and sew clothing for puppets, as well as how to select and present plays. On a marionette controller, one of the boys, Harry Burnett, signed his name, and above his name, all in caps, he wrote the name of the librarian he obviously adored, Pura Belpre. Belpre published Perez and Martina as a picture book in 1932. After she retired from the library in 1943, she published individual and collected Puerto Rican folktales as well as original contemporary stories. She also translated many popular English languages picture books into Spanish. In the 1960s, she returned to the library to work on the South Bronx Project, where she helped develop a bibliography of Spanish language books so libraries everywhere could improve their Spanish language collections. And, a natural storyteller like the rest of her family, she continued visiting libraries and schools to delight children with cuentos. She died in 1982, the day after receiving the Mayor's Award for Arts and Culture. Today, Belpre's love of story and community is commemorated in the Pura Belpre Award, given every year to the Latinx illustrator and author whose works best portray, affirm, and celebrate the Latin experience. Now a little bit about our author and illustrator. Annette Bay Pimental has published several picture book biographies, including All the Way to the Top, Girl Running, which was a Junior Library Guild selection and received a starred review, and Mountain Chef, winner of the Carter G. Woodson Book Award. She lives in Moscow, Idaho. Magaly Morales is the illustrator of What Can You Do with a Paleta, a Tomas Rivera Mexican-American Children's Book Award winner, as well as the picture books Chavela and the Magic Bubble and A Piñata in a Pine Tree. She was born in, I always get this word wrong, Galapa is Xalapa, Veracruz, Mexico. I studied that city or town in Spanish 5 when I was in high school, and I could never say it right because I would see X and try to make an X sound, and I don't think it makes an X sound. I think it makes like a CH sound or something very different. But yes, remember, it's important to celebrate other cultures that are not your own and cultures that you want to get to know more about so you can connect with other individuals. I love to learn about stories even if I have a hard time reading them and I stumble over my words. It's a primary reason why I don't edit my videos because it's important to see people learn how to read and discover what words truly mean through the effort of reading. So, I encourage you to once again either check out this book or books like it at your local library or purchase them at a bookstore near you. That's all we have today, friends. Catch you next time. Bye. We truly enjoy sharing our adventures with you here at Ivy's Fortress. If you do too, like our videos and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Well, what are you doing? It is your choice, but we'll race you there. Bye.